John, it's so great to see your new book.
Thank
How
you.
wonderful. I'm so excited. It was such a delight to read it. Will you tell everybody about it and what, like, where does this come from for you?
Well, staying focused in a hyper world is, we're all being overstimulated and it changes our brain. For our children, it creates ADHD. In our relationships, it causes us to have shorter attention spans. So we're not listening to each other. We're more stressed. We often lose interest in our partners and move on. There's twice as many single people today. We just can't maintain that focus on the relationship or shift our focus appropriately. Once you're married, then it begins to show up as women start feeling more overwhelmed. These are all symptoms of well, what we classically call ADHD or ADHD. It's the brain has been changed by hyperstimulation, and there's lots of things in the last 30 years that have changed the world to overstimulate our brains, and so we tend to be addicted to high stimulation, and a relationship becomes boring if we are, you know your partner for 30 years. That's not high stimulation. You can predict everything they're going to say and do. So
right. Heard all the stories.
That's right. And if you don't have healthy brain function, you lose the passion in a relationship. So how to bring back the passion? And then in the elder stages, people are losing their memory. I mean, everybody's forgetting. And this is the same condition as you get older. In the middle years, and then in children, same things happening in the brain. Is that when you're overstimulated by things like sugar and caffeine, lots of caffeine, junk food, lots of TV stimulation, video game stimulation. These stimulants will tend to downregulate dopamine receptors in the brain, which then causes us to crave higher levels of stimulation. And most people don't know this. And I wrote this book particularly because I was having dinner with an expert on ADHD and learning from him and so forth. And I said, you have ADHD. And he said, that's ridiculous. He said, I said, you have ADHD. He says, I have so much focus. My wife can be talking to me and I don't hear a word she says. Now, what he doesn't realize is ADHD takes different forms. And particularly for adult men, it becomes this hyper-focused state where your wife can be talking and you're thinking of something else and you don't even hear her or you don't remember what was said. So we need emergencies to grip our attention. Now, just as men will tend to become hyper-focused, women tend to become overwhelmed with too much focus on everybody. So I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, and she can't shift it focusing on what her needs are. And this is showing up for everybody. We're being affected by this hyperstimulation. So this is staying focused in an appropriate way in a hyper world.
So a lot of people, I mean, most people know you for Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. So explain to us how this is an extension of what you teach in that book.
Well, I've been teaching relationships my whole life, or my adult life, 40 years. What this is what I see is again and again in relationships, women's #1 complaint is my husband doesn't listen. #1 problem in relationships is they lose passion, they lose attraction. So I went and found out why. It's not just behavioral skills, that's part of it. But like a bird flies with 2 wings, you've got to look at behavior, you've got to look at nutrition. Our brains are literally deficient in the nutrition that will allow the brain to heal when it's overstimulated. So what I found is by taking supplements, and I talk about supplements in this book, it's called natural solutions for ADHD.
So you're not talking about drugs?
Oh, please, no drugs.
Okay.
Natural solutions for ADHD, memory, and brain performance, all the way from 6 years old, all the way to 85 years old. This is the whole range. We're all being affected by the environment we live in, and I talk about 15 different causes of this condition, which we often call ADHD. What I call it just hypercondition. Let's say you're an active person, a bold child, you become hyperactive. Let's say you're more creative type, you tend to become hyper creative and distracted and messy and confused. That's what happens if it becomes hyper. But there's also children who are just more sensitive, and people who are more sensitive, they become hypersensitive. Those are the people when they become adults are taking antidepressants. And they don't need to do any of these medications. And then you get the compulsive types. These are responsible people, like to finish things, get it done. They become hyper-compulsive. They become resistant to change. These things cause big problems in relationships. So I shifted my gears from just relationship skills, which are so important, but also recognizing the nutrition that can help replenish the body.
Okay, and so a couple things. So you said antidepressants. You're certainly not recommending people come off antidepressants. You're recommending that they look into other solutions.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe. I educate. And what I tell people is there's alternatives that are natural. And since we're talking about antidepressants or the Ritalin drugs and the Adderall drugs, you never go off of a drug immediately, because drugs all change the brain. For example, Most parents don't even know that we're talking about drugs, stimulant drugs like Adderall and Ritalin that we're giving 6-year-olds. What they found at Harvard University did this study. Now, this is recent stuff. Most people didn't know about this when they started doing these drugs. Most doctors haven't heard about it. Harvard University did this study showing that taking these stimulant drugs, if you have ADHD, causes brain injury. Causes brain injury. Not if you don't have it, you're just taking the drugs. We always knew you take these stimulant drugs, it's going to injure your brain. People somehow think, well, if I have ADHD, it doesn't injure the brain. Well, they've proven it does. And there's 30% change in lessening in dopamine function after 1 year of doing these drugs.
Wow.
And so you get symptomatic relief with drugs, but you don't heal the condition. So what I do is go into what causes this condition, and the same cause for ADHD, hypersensitivity, hyperactive, hyperdistractive, hypercompulsive, the same thing there causes a memory loss, causes Parkinson's disease, causes dementia, it's all one condition. And that one condition, there's over 150,000 studies on it. It's just brain science. It's too complicated for most people. But what I do is simplify stuff. It's called oxidative stress. And oxidative stress, so everybody can understand it, is just when there's more free radicals than antioxidants. Then brain damage starts to occur, injury to the brain, neurons start disappearing, connective tissue starts to break down in your brain and throughout your body. So you would think antioxidants are the solution, which we all want to take more antioxidants, helps, but your body's designed to make this super antioxidant called glutathione. So I teach people how to make more glutathione so that your body can make brain chemicals, heal from overstimulation, and eliminate toxicity. All those things that I just mentioned come from one substance that your body makes called glutathione. And anybody with ADHD, diagnosed ADHD, dementia, Alzheimer's, their body stops making glutathione. How to wake that up is the answer. Not to take glutathione, although that can create symptomatic relief. How to actually make the glutathione, help your body to do it.
I think what's always been so interesting, we've worked together a long time, has been that you're always looking at the cause. Like you're looking at what is at the root, why do we feel or behave or think the way that we do. I think one of the things about the book, I have a 6-year-old and an almost 1-year-old, food is such an impact on my kids. Like I can give my son a candy bar or a peanut and the reactions are completely different, right? And obviously that's pretty a clear case, but what's the role of food in this?
Huge, huge. And I go through the different foods and how it affects our children, how it affects our adults, and so our adult brain as well. And there's even some studies from the FDA of 33 different diets that have proven to be more effective than taking stimulant drugs. Why are parents not told this? Why are they not told the basics? Because parents will say, oh, I tried everything. No, they didn't. Every time I've ever asked them, have you tried this supplement? Have you tried doing this? You know, Dr. Perlmutter has a best-selling book right now. In his experience, just giving a child vitamin D, for high doses of vitamin D, along with taking off of wheat, and most children with hyperactive tendencies go away.
Oh, wow.
Just that one. Now, every child's going to be different, because what you want to do is help the body to make this glutathione, and you want to stop free radical damage in the brain. So those are the two factors. High sugar content in your diet, wheat in your diet. Now, wheat is, you know, people have been eating wheat for centuries, so it didn't cause ADHD then, but wheat is different today. It's processed wheat, and what people don't know is that when they harvest wheat, wheat is not GMO, but what happens is they spray the wheat at the end with Roundup, which is the most toxic pesticide substance in the world. Now, when pesticides go into your gut, and all these children have gut problems, they tend to have diarrhea, they tend to have constipation, they get stomach aches. These are all symptoms of your gut is not working properly due to toxicity that's killed the good bacteria. Antibiotics can do it, vaccinations can do it. If it kills the good bacteria, we need probiotics to replenish that. Without healthy gut function, vitamin D can't work to then make glutathione, which protects your brain from toxicity. So I go through all the pathways. I know it sounds complicated, but I go through them step by step, what you can do.
So if a family is worried that they or their children have this is a great book for them to pick up.
It's a great book. It gives you an alternative, because right now the only thing we hear in the media and it's, do you take stimulant drugs to treat this condition or do you not? And people often say, John, do you think ADHD is real? I say, if you're asking me, do we need to medicate it? I don't think we need to medicate it. If you're asking me, is the condition real? The condition is much worse than we even imagine, because we're not diagnosing these kids who have anxiety, who have depression, adults who have that as well. We're not addressing the children who are hyper-compulsive, which means they're perfectionists. They can be high performers. All ADHD doesn't keep you from being a high performer. It interferes with the happiness in your life. It interferes with your quality of relationships, your ability to sustain deep and lasting loving relationships. And that's why I'm committed to getting this message out there, even though it's not that friendly to an establishment that says, let's just give that little 6-year-old drugs. It's such a simple, easy fix. It's not an easy fix.
No, it doesn't sound like it. So this is exclusively available through Amazon.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
People can find it through Amazon. And this is great. Thank you, John.
Thank you.